Elizabeth Evans, and I'm a homeschooling mom of 4 young kids. I'm figuring this out as I go, but I'm here to talk to Bonnie, who has been writing and speaking on the subject for over a decade and has been homeschooling for 3 decades.
My name's Bonnie Landry. I've got 7 kids. They're ages 13 to 33. I've been homeschooling for 29 years. I'm a wife, a mom, a grandma. I'm a speaker and a writer, and I'm an advocate of joy. So we're here to provide this podcast so that homeschooling can look like you imagined it to be. Good evening, Elizabeth. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What a beautiful tree you have in your back there.
Thank you.
For those of you who are watching on YouTube, they have a lovely, glorious tree. Our tree's not going up till my boys get home from university, because it's such a family thing to put out the tree and decorate the tree and all that. So we're going to have it all ready, but we won't actually decorate it till we.
Right. You know, I'm not ready to think about that because I'm very strict. Day after Thanksgiving, we go and get our tree. So I haven't even thought about what I'm going to do when the kids are at school, you know?
Yeah. You've got a few years.
Yeah.
Although, it goes by fast.
Right.
Yeah. So it's funny. There's some traditions that, like I said to the boys, what Christmas movie, they only are going to be home on the 19th, right? So we only have a few days before Christmas. Mm-hmm. So what movie or movies would you absolutely not want us to watch without you, right? Because we can't save them all to the 5 days or 6 days before Christmas. And so A Wonderful Life was the one that won the vote. So we'll watch that all together, but we're going to watch a few next week or so.
Yeah. My husband and I sat down in November and we made a list and we put it on the calendar. Every Christmas movie we're going to watch. And I think we're halfway through. So
that's amazing. We haven't watched any yet.
Really?
Yeah.
We're very, very dedicated. This is our tradition. I will say the weirdest thing that my husband and I do, because we're very traditional with everything. The weird thing we do is a couple years ago, we started the tradition of watching the Alien anthology movie during the Christmas season. You know, you've got your old what did it come out, 1980 something, or was it in the 70s? Yeah, that's been our tradition for years. We watch it.
This isn't a tradition, but we watched Zorro, and we're going to watch Zorro 2 this week as well. Because I don't know why. One of the things I'll probably watch with my daughter is we like While You Were Sleeping.
Oh yeah.
You know that movie? It's super good, but sappy. My husband probably wouldn't want to watch it.
Right. Well, You've Got Mail is a great one too.
Yeah, it's super cute. Yeah, because it's Christmastime too.
Yeah. Well, one of my friends and we had dreamed about opening a bookstore together, and with the shop around the corner as our
model.
What would look like. Yeah.
That's awesome. And every town has its lovely little bookstore. Every town we've ever lived has always had a lovely little bookstore like that. So everybody can relate to that, I think.
Yeah, we had one and it did not survive COVID.
Oh, what a hard day.
So it was really sad. I actually was helping curate the children's book section, and I was having so much fun. I was really sad when it closed, but yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of stuff to be fixed up after we're all through this, but let's not talk about that right now.
Yeah. So I will say, I do, but before we start, my husband made is it the White Lady that we talked about?
Oh, I made it too. I sent a picture.
Did you use the egg whites?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, first time I've done that. So, my husband listened to it and he goes, "Well, aren't we supposed to have a White Lady tonight?" And I said, "Okay, if you're game, I'm game." And so for those of you who didn't hear the last podcast, we interviewed Michael Foley, who is the author of Drinking with the Saints. And so he recommended that as a drink for the feast of
Immaculate Conception.
The White Lady. And so it actually was delicious.
Yeah.
And we made it with egg white, and it was very frothy and beautiful. And so I was so excited about it. I sent Michael Foley a picture.
Yeah, Tim said it was good. And I meant to have it in the show notes. I don't know if we could go add it back in, but I thought of a virgin version of a drink.
Oh, good.
You're familiar with the Moscow Mule, which is ginger beer and is it vodka? I don't know. I think there's a couple versions that you could do, but it's ginger beer with some cranberry juice and orange juice, and it's so good.
Oh, yum. Yeah, let's totally put that in there. I put a link to other mocktails as well for,
Okay.
the children and the pregnant women. And for us, we usually do Shirley Temple for the kids when a fancy
Oh,
drink.
yeah.
Yeah.
Martinelli's brand sparkling cider.
Yeah. That's always our Christmas Eve drink.
Yes. We get the cranberry apple, which is so hard to find.
Oh.
But Costco sold a 4-pack, so we were able to get that this year.
Oh my gosh. The great Christmas buys. So we won't be able to help ourselves. We're going to, Christmas is going to come up in the conversation. And if we get through our questions quickly enough, we have some Christmas books we'd like to share as well. So, so I'm hoping to get to that.
I know, me too. I've got them stacked in order depending on how much time we have.
Good. Well, I only have 2. So maybe we can, you can do one, I can do one, and then you can do one, and I'll tell you about it later. Anyway.
Yeah. We've got to get to it now.
I know, yeah.
All right, let's get to the first question then. All right, what is the time and place for children's programs, shows, nature documentaries, and movies in homeschooling?
Oh, that's a great question. I've always felt that, screen time in my own home, as I've mentioned probably on several occasions now, is always been really, really limited, right? But what I found was that over the years, as the quality of what's available online improved, I wanted to include that in some of our studies because it was just too valuable to ignore. Okay, so let's just talk about that for a moment, as opposed to sort of just shows, sort of things that would be helpful. Now, sometimes that can be a movie or a kid's show or a documentary, whatever. There's a different range of sort of thoughtfulness, right? And sometimes we need mindless things to do so we can, cook dinner or whatever. But in terms of what we can thoughtfully add into our education, I like to think that all of those things are planned and that we watch them with our kids. Okay, so anything that is supposed to be adding to the backbone of our education, whether that's a movie or a documentary or a virtual tour of an art museum or whatever, however that looks, that we would plan it. And it's a very inexpensive way to have a field trip. And we would kind of treat it that way, that maybe before we watch the virtual, to take the virtual tour of the Sistine Chapel, we first of all talk about, okay, what is the Sistine Chapel? What are we going to see? Who painted it? What's its meaning? Where is it? What's some context, right? So treat it like a field trip. And that, depending on the age of your kids, that could be anywhere from a 5-minute discussion to a whole afternoon of discussion about laying out the context for this field trip. And then, take an hour or however long and, bring it up on your screen and, look through it or watch it. In things like a movie, let's capitalize. I mean, almost every movie you watch, even, superhero movies or whatever, there is context for discussion. Right? We can discuss plot, we can discuss characters, we can discuss morality, virtue. There's a lack of virtue. We can discuss, things like science fiction. What is this real? What kind of world is this? There's so much fodder for discussion. And so much of language arts and really faith discussion as well can come into almost any movie we watch. That's why, I always say Christmas and Advent is a unit study, right? Don't even worry about doing anything else. Just embrace all of it, right? Take opportunities to talk about, like, for example, we were talking about It's a Wonderful Life. It takes place, during the stock market crash, right? What was going on? What was the context? There was a war. There was a stock market crash. What led to that? What brought us out of it? All of those things can be discussed, in light of this movie and the different characters in the movie as well. So I think that's we should just be mindful of what education can happen without flogging it, right? Just make it a natural part of the discussion that goes along with, right?
Yeah.
In terms of younger kids and sort of children's shows, I mean, I know, like, my kids didn't really watch educational shows. we would once in a while, we didn't have a TV. So once in a while we'd be like at my parents and they'd watch Mr. Rogers, or we'd put a movie on for them or something like that. But it was pretty rare that they, you know, we didn't watch a lot of television because we didn't have one. So now, of course, you own a phone, you own a computer, television is everywhere. And it is an issue that we have to deal with, where I wasn't dealing with that back in the 90s, right? It wasn't an issue. And so teaching children healthy habits is, you know, there's probably an argument to be made for that, right? In the sense of, you know, you may listen to a story online, or you may watch one show while I'm making dinner, or you may, you know, like, it's such a reality, and it's so in our kids' faces. You know, I mean, in a sense, I'm a bit glad. I'm kind of watching my daughters and how they're handling it, and I think they're handling it really well. But it wasn't something I had to deal with, right? So I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, Elizabeth? Like, if you share your thoughts, I can sort of just make some observations about what my daughters are doing and other younger women.
Well, first I will preface by saying my husband and I really, really limit our kids' electronic exposure. Not that they don't watch movies and TV, because they do. But we have to be careful on, you know, when during the week we're allowing this and not, because with our oldest ADHD, it really kicks it up several notches to where he has a lot of issues controlling his anger. He gets really easily irritated, frustrated, a lot of really quick emotions. And we just don't want to set him up for that.
Right.
Now,
is there a limit he can handle? Like, is there a certain amount of time or episodes of watching something that he can handle? Or do you always have management? I'm asking the question because I suspect there's other parents who would appreciate hearing the answer. Yeah.
It would honestly be best if we never let him do it. The thing is that it's just not realistic. You know, there's a lot of great film, a lot of great, I mean, even computer games and stuff that we don't, I feel like if we cut him off from using any of that, he could lead to abusing it as he gets older and out of the house.
Yeah, it's a lesson, right?
Right. So it's almost like we brace ourselves, you know, okay, we're going to sit down and watch Iron Man, but we know tomorrow we're going to be dealing with the aftermath of that.
Right.
Which, as long as we're aware and prepared, we're able to go forward.
Yeah, that changes everything, right?
Right.
Yeah, like when your kids have a bunch of sugar or something, and you think, okay, well, I know there's going to be fallout from this,
right?
So you know, I just need to be prepared to deal with it. So yeah, so maybe lots of outdoor time or something like, you know, after the sugar, after the movie, or
right. Yeah. So
okay.
Now again, our kids watch stuff. We don't avoid things, especially this month. We have a lot of family movies lined up for the Christmas season, and yeah, it's just been, like I said, we just prepare for the aftermath.
Right.
So now, after prefacing with that, as you were sharing your perspective and stuff, I was thinking about a time recently where I actually did turn to, it was YouTube. We were reading, we have this illustrated version of the Michelangelo story. And I always forget what it's called, but it's a medium he used. Is it fresco? It's the way he would prepare a surface for painting. He
so
did
fresco it with wet plaster.
Yes.
Paint soaks into the wet plaster. Yeah.
Right. So it was describing this process, and I myself was having a really hard time picturing what they were talking about. And so we had finished reading. We read like maybe 2 pages a day because there was a lot of information. And so I'd been sitting there thinking, what does that look like? You know? And so I thought, I wonder if there's a video on YouTube. And I looked it up, and the first video was a link where there was somebody actually doing the whole process and explaining what they were doing. You know, it's first you put on, you know, the plaster or whatever it is, and then you have a stencil that you put on there, and I think it's like pin pricks so that you can see like
Kind
an
of
outline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think you have to let it dry, and yeah, it was really cool to be able to see that, and I showed the kids, and
Cool. And so one of the tricks like that I think is really valuable for us as parents is look those things up on your own time, then show the kids, so that you're not doing all the rabbit trail stuff with them standing there staring and saying, oh, I want to see that, or I want to see that, right? So I think that we need to sort of make decisions about it, right? Again, sort of mindfully considering how we're going to let this play out, right? So it's so much easier than show them the video, right? As opposed to 20 videos.
Yeah. And then the other time, I think this school year we did something is we're going through the 50 states. We have this book that just gives a couple facts about each state. And so we were looking at Alaska, and I had thought that there was a National Geographic documentary about Alaska, and I couldn't find it, but I don't know if you've heard of the movie. What is it? Is it Toko? Is that the Disney movie? Okay, for any listeners that know what I'm talking about, it's a film about, I think, a sled dog. Anyway, it takes place in Alaska. I personally haven't seen it, and I know you were saying we should watch things alongside our kids. Right. In this instance, I think I had to do laundry or something, but Liam had watched it with my sister already, so I knew it was safe to watch.
Okay, yeah.
But so they watched it and were able to tell me, about sled dogs and how dangerous it was and what the scenery was like, and so it was our extension of learning about Alaska.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that is a reality that sometimes we let our kids watch things because we need to get something done, right? Or because we need a break. And a lot of us don't have, family around and things like that, right? So sometimes you need a break to just have a bit of space. So no, I'm not saying I never did that, because that, I did, but in terms of educational value was kind of what is getting at, is that if we can watch things with them, right? But there's always this temptation, okay, so I mean, I would sometimes be doing things, with my hands or whatever, whatever I could do. If I could, peel carrots or whatever. Yeah. If I put something on for my kids, okay, I got to make some use of this sitting time, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but what I've noticed with my daughters is that I'm sure there's a lot of crap out there. Okay. What I've noticed though is that there's these little short shows that are sort of like how things work, and how numbers work and how letters go together, and kind of these little shows that they watch that are, first of all, very short, but also very educational in a pithy way, right? And so that and it seems like the kids are just as kind of appeased in a sense by those things as they are by mind-numbing crap, right? So I think, wow, I think that the hole that I would have experienced when my kids were young, and of course I wasn't dealing with the same devices and stuff around, but there was a lot of crap. And so now it seems like those holes are being filled with much better things, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, my daughter, who's 2 on Monday, so the day this comes out, she's 2. She loves Bluey, which is a Disney Plus show. It's filmed. It's a cartoon, but it's made in Australia. And so it's these little cattle dogs, and it's about this family, and it's so wholesome. It's about all the things that this family does together, and the imagination that these small little puppies have, and the games they play. And I tell you, it has given my kids so many ideas for how to play, with each other in the backyard.
Really?
Yeah, it's really awesome. And each episode is 8 minutes long.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's the same thing that, my grandkids are, they're watching these little shows, and they might watch a few of them, but they're short. Right. Yeah. And, so, I mean, I think that we have to be open to looking at the good that's out there, and at the same time disciplined, right? Like anything. And of course there's those days when you're sick on the couch and they just watch stuff ad nauseum.
For hours.
Yeah, and that's how you get through the day, right? And I think that, because we don't live in communities, sometimes that is what we're faced with in terms of our tools in our toolbox, right? We just have to, like all tools, we have to use them wisely.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Can
Did
we
you
move
have
on?
another question? Or is
Yeah.
there more? Okay.
That there's no more to go along with that, but we can move on to the next question.
Sure.
How do you juggle time with each child without interruptions? This is coming from a mom of 4 who's feeling frustrated juggling, all the things on top of with, wanting to spend time on subjects individually with her kids and feeling like it's just not happening.
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, because of our approach to school and the essentially, if I can just, I'm just sharing my own experience, right? So basically my day was split into 2 parts. So in the morning, I would read to my kids, we'd read together as a family. Then I would sit down and take turns doing their one-on-one work with them. So I would usually went in age order from youngest to oldest, right? That was just the pattern we got into. Then we would again have lunch together, and I would read to the kids over lunch. And then we were usually done for the day, unless I was helping a high schooler or something. And my kids would, when I wasn't working with them, if they were old enough to work independently, they would work on their own things. But it's one of the reasons I hammer like chocolate chip math and dictation, and anything else that you're doing one-on-one with your child. And sometimes there would be other things, like we might look at a little art book together every day, or we might, have some other little project that we do, a poetry book or something that we bring in that I just feel is a little one-on-one thing that I might like to do with them. That time needs to be pleasant and lovely and a time of filling their tanks, right? That's the point. And that is more important than the education. So it's so educational, but I think the reason why it's so educational is because it's one-on-one, and because it's tenderness, right? It's love, it's encapsulated, it's closeness, it's intimacy. And so that's something that, every day you get that opportunity to fill their tanks, right? So if we can just kind of think, just trust, okay, there's tons of education that's going to happen here just by the fact that we're taking math and we're taking language and we're putting it under a microscope, and I'm just enjoying this moment with you, right? That we both fill their tanks and educate them at the same time. But if we can just trust that education will happen and focus on the filling of the tank, right? Education happens better, and our children end up having this intimacy with us, right? And my kids always really enjoyed that time with me because I was sensitive to keeping it really short. I wanted to make it pleasant. We had fun together. Now, without interruptions, that's a bit of a crapshoot, because when you're living family life, there's always interruptions, right? So if we can manage our lives in such a way as to mitigate the interruptions that we experience, right? So when we think in those terms, something as simple as, okay, I'm going to make sure that okay, we've all just had breakfast, so everybody should be okay for food right now. I'm going to make sure that I can kind of see where my kids are while I'm doing dictation with this child. Kind of know what everybody's up to. If there's a toddler, I'm going to make sure somebody's with the toddler while I'm working with this child. I'm going to make sure the toddler's gone to the bathroom if they're, toileting and that sort of thing. Just if I can sort of manage those things and manage my life in such a way that, like most of us come to at some point in our parenting journey, is we learn that, we block off places that are dangerous. We put, things we don't want them to get into high up. We don't want to be thinking, what are they getting into, right? Or worse, getting into something dangerous or mess making, while you're engaged with somebody else, right? That said, if that toddler wanted to be on my knee, or a baby, we need to be on my knee, I didn't consider that an interruption, right? So I think what's really important is that we sort in our brain, okay, what's manageable? Like what can I manage to make my life a little simpler? Okay. And that's often a stuff problem, right? And what is not manageable. And at the same time that we're doing that, we're teaching the child that we're sitting with, when something's a true emergency or a response to a poorly planned event, right? Poorly planned moment, perhaps, or, maybe poorly planned, some door needs a lock on it, that they can't get into, so that I'm not constantly getting up with interruptions that could be prevented, right? Mm-hmm. Have I shared on the podcast yet a little poster called the Tyranny of the Urgent?
I don't think so. I think you've talked about it.
Okay,
I don't know if you ended up sharing it in show notes though.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I have it. I'll double check when I get off. If I don't, I'll put it there. I have a heading on my website, bonnielandry.ca, called PDFs, and I've got a whole bunch of different PDFs that I just put on there that people can use if they want to for planning purposes or whatever. And one of them is this poster called The Tyranny of the Urgent. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of if you can sort life into 4 buckets, right? It's a Stephen Covey idea. I've capitalized on that, only I've sort of put it in a mom parenting kind of format. Yeah. So it's urgent but not important, urgent but important, not important and not urgent but important. Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are basically the 4 buckets, and most of us live our life in urgent and not important. Yeah. Okay, so things are urgent, but they're not, like important on a moral or safety scale, say, for example. So we're putting out brush fires all the time. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Things that are preventable, and not all things are preventable, but many things are. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so what the Stephen Covey idea of this tyranny of the urgent is that most of our time should be spent, most of the spare time that we have, or the time that we're working towards goals in our home life, should be spent on that which is not urgent but important. Mm-hmm. Right? And unfortunately, we're the bulk of our time is not urgent, not important, or urgent but not important, and urgent and important, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we can move the things from urgent and important into the non-urgent category, right? Mm-hmm. By the way we manage. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could further the question, what about when you have interruptions from older kids as you're working with somebody, like older sibling comes in and wants to offer advice or interject in something, how do you as a parent deal with something like that? Because that could be distracting for the child that's educated. And
yeah, I mean, some kids are more inclined that way to want to interrupt, to want to sort of grasp your attention. So one would hope that when we're pouring ourselves into them and making this time with them really pleasant, mm-hmm. Even if sometimes it's at the cost of doing less education and doing more something fun to fill your tank, right? Mm-hmm. That's okay. Some kids are, sort of bottomless pits of neediness, right? And so that comes out in different ways. Either it's advice or mom, I need your help with something. So one thing is, under the management heading, I would never work dictation with one kid and have another kid, say, working on math that they weren't actually completely independent with. I would just say, just do your music practice, or just do the things, or just go play. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want them doing something where they might require my attention, mm-hmm. right? But the other thing is that I think that outside the circumstances, it would be really important to say to the interrupter, right? Because generally a kid who interrupts you constantly is the problem, not as opposed to a kid who's going to occasionally interrupt you. Usually the occasional interrupters are the ones who are already kind of sensitive to that, right? Yeah. But the sort of habitual interrupter, or advice giver, or whatever they are, outside the circumstances, I think it would be an opportune moment to say, I like to take a few moments, just 10 or 15 minutes with each of you, daily, so that I feel like I have time to spend with you one-on-one, so I can, feel close to you. Like, wrap that up in a really, in the beautiful wrappings that it is, right? It's really, really important to me that I get a little bit of time with each of my kids every day. And I've noticed that you like to get my attention about something, you have something to say. Do you think that it could wait? Do you think there's some times when it could just wait so that I can give the same time to so-and-so that I gave to you? Or would it help if you went first, or whatever thing is sort of management, but bring that problem up with them, I think, and just say, how can how kids are good problem solvers, right? How can we do this so that I can be as attentive to them for a few minutes so they feel my tenderness as well, right? That's really important to me. And they might come up with very creative solutions, right? Or if you said, if it's really important, like it can't wait, could you just put your hand on my shoulder and I'll touch your hand so that you know that I'm there. And then you can tell me what it is. And I could say to you, oh yes, that is something we need to deal with right now. Or, that's something that I think can wait till after dictation. Mm-hmm. So let's let that wait. I'll be about 10 more minutes, right? Or whatever, right? Do you think those are viable options?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we get into our books?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, you go first because you have more than me.
My favorite topic, especially when it comes to Christmas books. Okay, I found this one a couple years ago, and it is by far my favorite Christmas book. It's called Humphrys' First Christmas, for those on YouTube that can see. It's written and illustrated by Carol Heyer, Heyer.
Okay.
And it's about a kind of a very prideful camel who thinks it starts, I'll just read the first page because it's short. But it says, "Beloved, most beauteous and exalted king of all should be my name. Instead, they call me Humphrey." And here's just this goofy looking.
The illustrations are beautiful.
Oh gosh, beautiful. And it's just this camel that just wants what he wants, and he, is not afraid to go after it. And then, but he's one of the caravan camels for the wise men. And so he goes and finds baby Jesus. And so the first page of the book is actually the very last page. But so it's just beautiful. It gives me goosebumps. I love it. And it's just, you've got this goofy camel, which is just fun. So
that's awesome. Okay. I am going to show, we have many, many, many Christmas books that I love, but I'm going to show you a couple that I just are exceptional. This book I found, I think it was last year, actually. It's new. It's called The Nativity, and it is from paintings. Every page is a painting done by Giotto. Okay. So in Padua, in Italy, there's a beautiful chapel that was at one time a chapel to a very rich family called the Scrovegni family. So it's called the Scrovegni Chapel, or the Arena Chapel. It was built on the top of an old Roman arena. And Giotto, it's considered to be his finest work. It's just unbelievable. So the entire chapel is painted with scenes from the life of Christ in like a cycle. So, sort of chronologically, the scenes from the life of Christ. And so I won't show you all the pages, but I'll show you some of the pages. So it's written really beautifully, sort of like hand done calligraphy, but then each panel, and it's a big book, each panel is just this beautiful painting by Giotto, and it's just absolutely exquisite. So it's just telling the story of the birth of Christ, but more visually than anything else, right? And has a small amount of text on each page. It's just, it's phenomenal. And anyways, I just went gaga after I found this. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the next one I'm going to share is The Christmas Miracle of Jonathan Toomey. Have you read this one?
No.
It's one of those longer illustrated children's books. so it takes a good while. But this is actually illustrated by PJ Lynch, who, if anybody's been sticking around for our first shows, the book Ignis that I shared is same illustrator.
Right. Okay. I thought
so. I have a type. But it's about this this wood carver who lost his wife and child, and so he's known as, gloomy throughout the village. But then a widow and her son come to him asking him to make their nativity that they lost. And so every day the little boy and his mom come because he wants to watch him work. And at first, they're kind of annoying to him, but then by the end, his heart opens up again and he smiles again. And it's really beautiful. I'm not doing it justice, my explanation of it, but
it's always so hard, right? You wish you could just read it out loud to the readers,
right. Right.
Show them all the pictures. I know.
Yeah.
The next book I'm actually going to, just another book popped into my brain. It's actually not a Christmas book. Somehow I ended up on Tan's review. Tan is a Catholic book publisher. Yeah. And I ended up on their review list. So they send me books to review, which I'm going to review on right now because it's really lovely. And the quality of the books are really high in general. But this one it's a new book out called Monks Make Amends. It's not a Christmas book, but would make a great Christmas gift. Written very little text. It's all about these monks in a monastery, and the monks start off and they're all angry and in bad moods and picking at each other, right? But it uses really simple language that would be appropriate. Like if you're reading it to a 2 or 3 year old, like the monks were mad, the monks were hurting each other, like experiences that 2 and 3 year olds have, right? Yeah. And the monks are all cranky with each other. And then of course, eventually, the Father Abbot prays and, peace comes and harmony comes. So the illustrations are really beautiful and kind of this little sense of, life inside a monastery that, and I think for kids too, the idea that monks could act in a not holy way, would be interesting for them. It's like, I'm a kid and I struggle with this, but even holy people struggle with this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Super cute. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that one.
Yeah. Do you have it with you or no?
It's downstairs. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway.
I'll have to look it up then.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like most of mine are very much tie into the nativity and such. So I guess I'll share a book that is more secular for any listeners like that. Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree.
Okay.
Is really sweet. It's just this Mr. Willoughby gets his tree, but it's too tall, so he cuts off the top and throws the top out. But then the gardener finds it and gives it to the maid, and the maid, it's too tall, so she cuts off the top, and it goes all the way down to where just a little mouse that lives in the house ends up with a very, very tip for a Christmas tree. And my kids love it, and it's one of those books kind of written in rhyme almost.
Yeah, cool.
So it's a fun read.
I know for those of you who are listening and not watching on YouTube, what you will recognize, any book recommendations that Elizabeth makes always have exquisite illustrations, because that's obviously something that matters a lot to you.
Yes,
yeah,
very much so. I actually, there's so many books out there with great stories, and I feel like I can say this because I'm not singling out any particular book, but there's some of them where the illustrations cheapen the story, which is
I agree.
So sad to me, because there's a lot out there that are just wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm very opinionated on it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I know I was too. Like I just didn't keep. People gave us books occasionally, or the kids picked them up from, the thrift store or garage sale or something like that. If it was crap, I would just, I'd read it a couple times, then gone. And so the next book that I'm going to share with you is, it's the one and only book I have left to share with you. But I don't have just one of this book. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I think I have one more copy downstairs, but it's all the same book.
Oh no! Do you like this book?
I collect it. So these are my copies of A Christmas Carol.
Okay.
Which I love, and I read it every year to my kids. And so over the years, I've collected a few copies. Yeah, I'm missing one of them. I've collected
that bottom copy, the bottom one at the bottom of your stack, that's PJ Lynch's illustrations as well.
That's right. Okay, so yeah, I've read this one a few times. It's beautiful. So again, we're going to have more YouTube viewers this time because I'm showing pictures. The illustrations are lovely and rich, and that's something for me. Like even sometimes when they're just really small black and white plates, they have to be beautiful.
Right.
And so I have the illustrated Lynch version.
Yeah.
I have this one, which has very few, it has just a few little antique plates in it, but I just love the fact that it's part of a little series of classics. And so that's a really nice one. I bought this one just because I thought the cover was really funky.
Yeah.
And it's paperback. It's the only one I have that's paperback. This one I've had for decades. It's illustrated by, also beautifully illustrated by an Italian illustrator. And the illustrations are just, oh, hold on, I gotta show you one. So this is Bob Cratchit's family, but they're just these super cool, really capture the mood and really capture the, I don't know, Charles Dickens words. This one I bought at the New York Public Library's gift shop. Have you seen this one?
I have that one and the PJ Lynch version one.
Okay. Yeah. So this one here is has Charles Dickens' original manuscript on the left-hand side of the page, and then the text on the other side. And interestingly, when we were in New York last December, my niece is living there, so we went to visit her with my brother, and they had some Charles Dickens books on display as a special traveling display. And this book happened to be on sale, and so I was really excited to find it. But he was also the first paid author to do public readings, and these manuscripts apparently are from public readings of A Christmas Carol. Wow. And so he would, be editing as he was, before his readings, and what went well and what didn't go well, I guess, scratching things out and changing them and whatnot. So that was cool. This is my favorite of all. I've lost the paper cover to it. It's my favorite because of the illustrations, and it's the one my kids probably resonate with the most. And the illustrations are by Quentin Blake. So I don't know if you're familiar with Quentin Blake. His illustrations are all line drawings, but they're so expressive and so incredible. He does a lot of children's books, and it's just probably the one I've read the most often. So while we're sitting around after we do the Jessie tree at night, I read A Christmas Carol, and that's just become another family tradition.
That's great.
Yeah. So did you have more there? That's it. I only have my Christmas Carol.
I have more, but I won't share them all.
Sure. How are we doing for time? Yeah, we're okay. We have a couple more. We probably have time for another book or two.
Okay. Well, I'll start with this one. This is Mortimer's Christmas Manger. It's about a little mouse who can't stand his dark, creepy hole. And so he sneaks out and looks around the house, and then he finds a manger. And so what he does is he keeps pushing out the wise men and Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus to sleep in the manger. But when he goes scurrying about, during the day, he finds that everything's put back in place.
Right.
And then one evening he hears
humans.
Yeah, he hears the father of the family tell the story of, Jesus and his birth. And then he realizes that he's been kicking Jesus out, just like the innkeeper did. So then he feels really bad. And so he puts everybody back where they go. And then he says a prayer that Jesus will help him get a home. And then he finds a gingerbread house.
Which I'm sure the family was thrilled about.
Right. My 4-year-old loves that book. He has me read it almost daily.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then, so I'll just share one more.
Sure.
Because I don't think you can have Christmas reading without a Jan Brett book.
Oh my gosh, no.
He's got so many. And this one I just found last year. It's called Christmas Trolls. And it's a brother and sister are getting ready for Christmas, decorating the tree, but things keep going missing. And it's because trolls keep stealing all their stuff. And so the girl goes and teaches them about Christmas and how it's about giving. And so she helps them decorate their trees and all that kind of stuff. And so by the end, the trolls understand Christmas. And yeah, it's just really sweet. And of course it's Jan Brett. So you've got the beautiful illustrations, and she's got the, what do you call it? The columns on the side that kind of tell you what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just beautiful, fun.
Yeah, her books are so nice.
Yeah.
The one that really stands out is The Mitten for me.
Yes. Oh yeah. But she has a new one that came out this year. We just got it from the library. It's called Cozy, and it's about a muskox. And now it's probably one of my favorite books.
Really? Is it like a board book or like
it's like The Mitten or any of her others, where it's just the kind of big illustrated. Yeah, it's really sweet.
Okay, nice. I'll watch for it.
Yeah.
Always on the hawk for good books.
Right. And we then looked up a short little documentary about musk oxes, which is cool.
I have to tell you a funny story. Before we sign off, I'll tell you a funny story about musk ox. So my grandkids came and were here this summer. They were here for 5 weeks, which was really nice. The whole family came. And my grandson, who's 4, is really into musk ox. But I said something about, he was telling me about a musk ox, family or whatever. And I said, I can't remember. I referred to an individual of the musk ox. And he said, well, it's called a musk ox.
Oh.
A group of musk ox, a single musk ox. It was very cute. All right, we should probably wrap it up, eh?
Yes.
Okay, so have a wonderful week. Just so everybody knows, you can all get me in all the usual places, send questions to us in all the normal places that you want to. A couple of things. I started a new podcast that I just do a little blurb most mornings that I can. It's kind of geared at Catholic moms, and it's called Martha, Distracted by Many Things. And so I literally just do anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, and that's been kind of fun. So I put my link on my, I put the links to it on Make Joy Normal, the Facebook page. And also we're going to do next week's podcast, and then we're going to take a couple of weeks off over Christmas. But we'll be back bright and cheery in January. But if you have questions that come to you over Christmas while you're having some downtime or whatever, just shoot them off and we'll just continue adding them to our list. So take care, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.